have Courtney Porter, another wonderful Indiana artist. Courtney, tell us a little bit about yourself.
As he said, I'm Courtney Porter. I am a native of Gary, Indiana. So I'm from up north, they call it the region. I've been here in Indianapolis a little over a decade. So yeah, I've never considered myself an artist until moving to Indianapolis and connecting with the wonderful people in places like we are. So yeah, that's in a nutshell.
Well, how long have you been in art? How long? What motivated you to even begin art?
My story is very much so one of self-expression and needing to have platforms to express myself and realizing that early on. So my journey is very much so experimental, which is why I say I didn't early on consider myself an artist. It was much so rooted on how I was feeling in a moment and what I was led to experiment with. So one of the reasons I didn't consider myself an artist and why I'm growing into that title is because my practicality. I very much so like outdoors and being in nature. And again, it seemed two worlds apart. So again, self-expression with me having the interests that were kind of, subculture, not necessarily popular or mainstream. It kind of gave me a very unique form of self-expression. And again, it was kind of necessary because I didn't have anywhere else to express or necessarily a lot of people to express to. So art kind of became a lifestyle for me, and that's kind of where I've taken this, wanting to connect the lifestyle of an artist, the practicality of it, and how again it's not really a thing that we can carve out in a niche. It's just a way of being. And if we're honest about how we feel, everybody has that potential to express themselves. That's how I connected with art. That's my very, very intrinsically, very personally. It was never something I aspired to do. Like I want to have a piece in a museum, nothing like that.
Okay, this work right here, a few pieces of Courtney Porter, and she also goes by Viva La Diva. She's a naturalist artist, and to explain that, she definitely uses a lot of raw materials, but she really gets inspired by just how she feels, nature, energy. She projects that. Like when you meet Courtney, I mean, she's an amazing woman. She's had a pretty long journey to finding her place in the art world, and I think she's coming, coming into her niche and what speaks, through her work. And these pieces right here are a really good example of that. I just see a lot of things that you do see in nature. She uses a lot of leaves and flowers and wood and textures, patterns and things like that. And everything's fairly simple, but the way she has it framed, it's very clean and it's not overdone, it's not too loud, but it does give you a sense of calm, and I think you get that from Courtney. I don't know, Majisa may have a few things to say about Courtney as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
It does create a sense of calm because that's what nature does for us.
That's right.
It's calming and it's soulfully rejuvenating. And that's what I get when I look at her work. It reminds me definitely of her because this woman is all about nature.
That's right.
She loves being there and it shows in her spirit. So.
Yeah, so we all have a story, and I think Courtney, she's definitely sharing a lot of her personal self and her personal experiences through her art and using nature.
Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So reflective.
It
You can't
is.
look at it without thinking.
Exactly, yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
So looking at nature, what are some of the elements that motivate you to start coming up with designs for, or what are your thought processes? What do you see?
Everything. I think nature is the blueprint for all of the creation that we have seen from, the great minds. that we admire. So if you look at a tree ring and you see that spiral and you realize that that same spiral is what goes through all of great architecture and the galaxy. So when you start to connect with that level of being, I think art comes more naturally because you see that, again, it all is an expression, and I have a responsibility to express my unique position because that's what this whole of nature is built on. So again, just seeing the colors in fall is one of my favorite seasons. Or again, the variety in flowers. It's hard to not connect art and nature if you can just learn to appreciate little things, learn to slow down. And again, the therapy in that for me was the world moving so fast and needing a place to go to kind of de-stress, and that's what nature served for as me. So that was triggering this artist that, again, is coming up, still bubbling up. Just having those moments to be still with ourselves in a world that tells you, no, you have to keep moving so fast, you have this to do, that to do. So again, why is everyone not an artist? Because again, I don't think we have the opportunity to slow down and realize I have a position on this thing that's happening to me. I do enjoy this when I have the opportunity to. So I think that's intrinsically what makes an artist. Unpacking yourself and having the ability to unpack yourself.
Well, you come from Gary, Indiana, a place well known for a particular family, the Jacksons, right? And we know they were fantastic artists, but your art is so different. Talk a little bit about if there are any aspects in Gary that triggered, there are a lot of different contrasts that are out there in Gary that are good triggers. Could you talk anything about that?
A lot of good contrast, and I'm glad you said that because growing up, me being so interested in nature and this aspect that's developing of me now, I didn't grow up in that. In fact, Gary is the absolute opposite of, nature and thriving in forests and all of these things that I'm, advocating for now. So growing up in a concrete jungle and not having the vision to see past that, I would say definitely plays a role in trying to find that peace or that place that's the opposite of, again, what a concrete jungle feels like. So again, I think that's what births artists at its core, that innovation that has to come from nothing. I was honestly spurred into appreciate nature. Coming from school, I used to walk to and from school from the colored doors to Gary Roosevelt, and there was a plant that was popping out of the concrete. So I watched it over time. Eventually it produced sticker bugs. There was a sticker bug plant that I eventually, researched, and I learned to be burdock. And it was, as I learned this plant, it was, my brain was kind of triggering because it was a liquor store in this corner, it was a liquor store in that corner. And here was this plant that served liver, kidney issues, things that come as a result of, drinking too much, right here coming out of the concrete. So it was like, at that point, I realized there was a form of communication happening that most of us didn't tap into. And from there, it was like I had to learn this world. And again, I still had the need to express myself because we were all kind of going through hardships and poverty, again, extreme poverty in that area. So, just ways to stay out of trouble. Self-expression plays huge in that, creativity, or else, you have alternative routes, which are not usually the good ones. So I can't say that I was spurred to be an artist or to express myself heavily from that situation, but surely the groundwork, the being primed towards looking towards nature for solutions came from that nothingness that I perceived.
There's a global narrative going on today, Black Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm. And then we had these various murals downtown Indianapolis. Have you had a chance to take a look at any?
I have had a chance to view a few.
Talk a little bit about the murals as well as the movement as a whole.
And I say a few, I didn't go on a tour of them because the movement is kind of a sensitive topic for me. Black lives have always mattered. And again, the ability to self-determine. At this level, identity is very important, and being called Black is something that I've had conversations on where, I have to be careful with who we say we are at this point. So I support what the movement has spurred in us, the pride, the wanting to be seen, the realizing you're important enough to be seen and heard. But that's always been the case. And I have a problem with the fact that it's, again, someone else telling us that this is the time for you to know that this is the case. So I look at things that are more on the political side of it. Who's funding this movement? Where did it come from? What are the agendas that it pushes? So it's very interesting for me to be early 30s when I totally agree with what the movement's doing. And the cultural pride, again, if we're identifying as being Black, the energy of it is vibrant and it can get a lot done. But also on that back end side where there is wisdom, where I've always been on the outskirts and able to look in, I do see the need to self-determine more. Where does this go for us? What are we going to use all of this power and this energy that we are, and this attention we're gathering to really do or say? Or are we waiting for somebody else to tell us that too? So I just don't want it to turn into another waiting for orders, or again, pushing another big agenda that's not our own. We have a lot of history of being used as pawns. So I love the art. I love the creativity that is spurred. I love the creativity and the self-expression that we've been pushed into. I am always cautious though if it's authentic expression, the environment that it's coming in. And again, is our energy being used most efficiently for what we would need to be in best position here?
How do you feel true art could be added to the subject matter?
I think just, again, creating from that place of rawness, again, the role of the artist is to respond to the circumstances and the environment. So it's hard not to pull in that cultural piece. But again, that's always been our expression. So again, it's hard to not be commercialized in this. So again, just express from your feelings, not from a trend. Sometimes that means disconnecting from all of the news and the madness and the things that want you to feel a certain way. Sometimes I feel bad for having peace in the middle of all this chaos. But if that's what I am feeling, that's what I have the duty of conveying.
How have you evolved as an artist?
I still so much am in the process of growing and finding out my identity. I don't feel solid just yet. This group has been very much so instrumental in helping me find my voice as an artist. I came in initially, again, from a self-expression perspective, I would make myself jewelry. People would like it, it started a business. And from there, I realized, okay, I like this. I started to play with collage as a medium, mixed medium. Very much so reflecting on the way that I felt in the society. So a lot of controversial pieces that Tony picked up on. And from there, just being welcomed into a larger audience where I realized that it was received well, and then becoming a part of the group, it has given me the courage to experiment. Because like I said, I never saw myself as an artist. These were things that were just very personal. So I see myself growing more and more into combining this interest that I have for nature and promoting our connection back into it, the conservation of it, as my artistic expression. It's kind of like two birds with one stone. So it's allowing me to showcase something that we don't see as art, this beautiful world around us, and then it's this way of sparking the stories to teach about it. So I'm starting to get more and more comfortable with that. It feels more like me. And that, again, it's still a process that I'm going through as I am true to how I feel in the moment. This doesn't feel right. This feels like I'm forcing. This feels like somebody else's work. Did you see something that inspired it? Yes. Is it you? No. So it's that process, which is not, you kind of just have to go through it.
We'll talk about your jewelry and what inspired you to see a piece of material and then fabricate it artistically as a piece of jewelry that's practical.
Oh, and it started so, again, very much so, practicality was the thing. So I always thought that we were really wasteful. So I wanted to think about things that we were wasting a lot of creatively. So a lot of my early pieces of jewelry were recycled paper. I would make bracelets from styrofoam, things like that, because I was more so interested in teaching young people on how to see this trash in a different way. As I got more into nature, I started to become fascinated with stones and lapidary arts. And that kind of took me into a different direction, but still liking the organic, free-flowing feel. So wire became something that fascinated me. It still allowed for that freedom. And then again, that nature interest pulled into it. So here I am now, mostly focusing on stones and gems and copper and gold-plated wire pieces. And right now, I am focusing on just self-adornments. So I'll have people who purchase it, but it's not because I'm marketing it. I tried the marketing of the thing, and what I've learned is when you have something that you like to do, and it's just naturally you like to do, when you have to do it for money, it totally kind of kills the passion. So a lot of my work now is just for things that, you know, I like to wear, stones that I find valuable, and then I'll create for others sometime. But again, who is art for, and what is the purpose of art? It really comes into focus when you, again, are in a place, in a position where everything is so commercialized. Am I for sale? And when you're doing art for that reason, it becomes a really blurry, it can become a really blurry issue.
How does your art speak to today's generation?
I think it's a futuristic thing. It's, we are immersed, like I said, in the technology of it. And here it is. I thought we saw all it to be saw with the green stuff. Why is what's the focus with plants? We are sick, physically, spiritually. And if we want to look at solutions to getting out of some of those problems, it looks like getting back to basics. So again, the promotion of plants. And I think younger generations are realizing, like, we don't want to be sick. That was my realization. My grandmother takes a lot of medications. So realizing that the diet and what we've learned kind of didn't give us the best, playing field. So I feel like I'm one of the generations that's starting to say it's a different way of doing things. So not only is my interest plants, I do vegan cooking. I'm a vegan chef. So the whole lifestyle is an art. It catches people. She's not just pasting plants she's trying to really get us focused on what's happening with this. So at a level, I think it is like a reset. If my generation realizes it, that means the next generation will realize it even more so. Hey, the pharmaceutical industry is not serving us. All of this outside advice and opinions is not necessarily serving us. We have ways that are culturally relevant, that have worked for us, that would be more economically suitable for us, that we've been kind of pointed towards. So that's what I hope is spurred when people see, again, this is your food, this is your medicine, this is your connection, your way out of something that sometimes feels very much so all-consuming and imposing.
Can you talk a little bit about, you have some pieces in a prior exhibit. Can you talk a little bit about those pieces that you had at that art exhibit?
Oh, the landmark exhibit was one of my favorite shows. It was a non-rectangular show, so nothing was allowed to be in a traditional frame, square, rectangle. So for this, you definitely had to think outside of the box, no pun intended. So that's where I got to kind of play with the stick concept that I just mentioned. So I took a wood panel. So again, we want to stick as close to nature as possible. We had wood panels, we had moss, we had sticks. And again, the fact is, I use things that are accessible to us because I don't have a lot of money still. So I don't want to say the starving artist thing is true because I don't claim that. But again, a lot of it is really being innovative. You can still create with little. So those were my materials, say for glue and some styrofoam to kind of hold things together. But the concept was a plaque, and I wanted it to be 3D. So you had this dome of sticks that just came off. I individually painted the sticks and hung things that meant something significant to me personally. So again, not really overthinking it or researching it too much. I had some shells that I liked, with some beads that I liked, just making it my own. And it turned out to be something that was well received by so many people. So again, not making a style that's not yours your own, that was my best reception, and it was the one that was closest to my true self. So again, the journey is just, I feel like, unfolding as I continue to learn, I continue to unpack and go deeper into my own level of expression. So that was that piece, and it was probably the most fun to make. And again, it felt most like me. So that's where I will continue walking down that road again of immersion with that nature concept.
What would you say to a young artist who has very little, if anything, but has a passion? What would you say to that artist?
That's enough. That's enough. Because the passion is the fire, and with the right fire, you can burn through the right things to get where you need to be. So don't be limited by what you don't have. Think creatively about what you do have, and that's come up again. We only have what we have. So instead of looking at it from a deficit position, that's an asset. What assets do you have? So if all you have is t-shirts and you want to paint, or if you have a pizza box and you want to paint, make it work. I have I won't say it's an artist friend, but there's an artist in the city who was able to sell designs on pizza boxes. It became trendy. But again, that's nothing an artist who has money and resources plans for. I'll paint on a box. But again, that's a passion. I need to draw. So I'm going to draw on, what's around me. And the people who appreciate, they'll appreciate it. You'll realize that you have support in places that you don't expect to have support, but you just have to step out so that support can meet you. And again, if you have a talent, if you have a fire, if you have that passion, I think people will respond to.
With nature, we are devastating places like the rainforest and other areas that are significant to global life. As an artist, how can you, or how would you express a view on these particular topics?
Yeah, we're at a place now that you can't negate it. And again, from where we are, that's a huge problem. And usually because we are still surviving, it's not one that we're ready to look at. We can't see the connection of me needing to be able to eat and pay bills and how I can care about what's happening with the world. Not realizing again that we are the very, us being kept in that way of thinking is the very thing that's causing the problem. If you can keep the people who are in charge of protecting the space chasing their tails, you can steal the planet, you can take the resources, but that's been done before already. We already know that narrative of, hey, look over here while I do this over here. So how can we engage the interest? That's been what I've taken on the work to do. And for me, it becomes very much so making it practical. Why should you care about the plants? Because at this level, they're selling you dandelion greens at Myers for $3.99 a bundle, and it's the same plant that you go mow. While they're simultaneously giving you a pharmaceutical because your diet is terrible. So how can we connect all of this? Well, the iron that you're missing that has you anemic and so susceptible to all of this disease comes from the plant that's in your backyard that you don't know about, so they sell it to you at a store, but you don't have any money. So it's become making it real in that level of, hey, that's been the work, trying to make it sink in that type of way. Because I think at that level, then you want to protect it. You can't sell me something that I know what it is, I'm now an advocate for it, and once you wake up to that level, it's you instantly make an advocate, because now I'm going to clean up my yard because those are my greens. You know, you start to take responsibility. It's a level of accountability that comes with a level of knowledge and awareness. So that's the work to inspire. Mm-hmm.
So many people are still walking around, eyes open, but asleep.
Yeah, and I think we all are to certain levels, but yeah. And again, devil's advocate, I can blame the environment. Because again, I know that I've come from people who have beautiful hearts, but they didn't have this information. And while they didn't have the information, meanwhile, the grocery stores were taken away, and then airplanes started to spray things over their heads. So again, I can look at it from a position that says, if I can see this, I have a vested interest in saying something. So again, it's very strategic. I would say it's systematic. The fact that you can go into almost any community where it's majority brown people and you can't find a grocery store for fresh food within a certain parameter. So again, when you realize that that's an insidious form of warfare, you start to take it serious. The covert ways that you could actually be, bringing life into the situation and starting with yours. So again, walking around asleep, not out of the lack of intelligence, but because the situation has been forced on you where you can't even think your way out of it. You're not being fed properly. Your air is toxic. So where do we start fixing that? So again, the global issues, we are already facing them in urban areas. We always get the problem first, which puts us in the position to troubleshoot for us and again, for a larger global problem that's emerging. Mm-hmm. So malnutrition is, again, not just us. This is, you see the starving children in Africa, they're all frail and sunk in, but then again, you go to Gary, it's obesity, but it's the same nutritional thing that's at the center of it. So again, they're giving us the same drug. For some reason, we don't see it as that. But this is where the art comes in, very heavy in self-expression. A lot of things that artists want to express, you couldn't necessarily say. You can't say all of this. And I always say comedians and artists are the best people in a society to get to the truth. A comedian because they're going to tell you and they're going to make you laugh about it. An artist because I get to hide it and let you try to figure out what I mean. But again, these are very sensitive things that we don't have platforms created anymore to be able to talk about.
What's the future for Courtney as an artist?
I will continue to express myself and explore. So that looks like, again, a lot of self-exploration. So as long as I am able to be here and experience the world as it unfolds, I will have something to say and contribute to it. And I think because I want to be true to myself, I will continue to do that, which will create more artwork. And I'm excited to, again, continue learning about nature, continue learning about myself, and seeing what those two intersections look like.